Welcome back to another episode of our Supercar Killer M3 presented by Turn 14 Distribution. Today we are working on getting this car to move under its own power. It's another big day for us today. We are gonna get this car moving around here, at the shop at least. We're not going for a test drive yet. It's still a ways away. We need to go to the dyno before that. But before we get into all of that, in the last episode, I closed this hood and it does not open. So that is what we're gonna start to address or start working on. And I think what we're gonna do is raise it up. I'm gonna try to stick my hand in there and grab that cable to see what's going on. And maybe Dave can like yank on it and open it up that way. Barring if that does not work, I've read online that you have to break one of these kidneys out and then muck around in this area here, and I definitely don't want to do that. So fingers crossed that we can try to do something with me just reaching up in there. So let's get to it. Looks like I can see the cable from here. Let's reach up in here, grab it, okay. And it doesn't feel like it's broken, which is a good thing. So it does feel loose though. That's peculiar. I think what may be happening is either, I don't think the cable snapped, so I think the sheathing around the cable is moving a bit because there's a lot of play there right now. So what we may try to do is Dave's gonna try to open the hood while I hold the cable in place, and that may just give us enough leverage that'll pop open. Here we go. Let me reach up in here again, grab that cable.
Oh yeah, I can feel you doing something there.
Yeah, hold on. I lost it. It's going back into the eyes. Okay, I got it again. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna start pulling it tight. Yep, go ahead. Oh, yes.
Nice.
Did it open? I think it did.
It did. Sound like it did.
Woo.
Felt like it did.
Wow, so all I had to do there was just hold the cable. I could feel you.
Oh, I could feel the tension in the lever too. Like when you tighten it, the lever would suck back down again.
Yeah,
so there's some like stretching or something?
Maybe. Let's open the hood and have a look now.
Yeah.
Ooh, look at that. Opened up like a champ.
I mean, if you had to do that on your own, no chance.
No chance.
So sometimes you need two people to open an M3's hood.
Yeah, so let's have a look here.
What's going on?
See, this area here, it's fine, but it's loose here.
Yeah.
So I don't know, DP. I don't...
Could there be something going on in the release mechanism? But it's weird, like when you were pulling on that cable, it would tighten the lever up. Like the lever would actually get pulled back down into like its lock position.
So that's why I think like the sheathing, I can see, it's so hard to show you guys here, but this area is rusted and it's like coming apart. Let's see if I can grab some light. There you go. Now you can see in there that whole cable is like rotted and rusted.
Yeah.
So I think we may need to replace the cable. In case you're wondering how this hood release system works, as you can see, there's actually two cables here. One that goes to the cabin and one that goes over to the hood latches. And if I pull the release here, you can see that's how it's supposed to work, but the cable's moving. Look at that here, like the whole cable.
Yeah, flopping around.
Flopping around.
Fish out of water here.
Well, this escalated very quickly, as it usually does. What I thought was going to be a quick 5-minuter has now turned into us removing the latches here, because as you can see, our cables, well, they're a little rotten. I think this is our problem. This is split, meaning that when you try to pull the cable, there's too much give here. So, and look at this side too, also goners. We're gonna have to replace both sides at this point. Oh, you know what? And I think both of these clips are broken here too, so that's not a good sign, but maybe we can get that fixed. So anyways, it looks like we're gonna have to order some parts here and then get back to this because I have no other way of fixing this right now.
While we wait for those parts to arrive for the latch system up front, we have jumped out back here because we need to finish off installing the rear brakes, and we also have a little modification we're going to make to the spring perch here, which we'll show you momentarily. Out back, we are just running stock calipers, which these are new cores that you bought, right, Pete?
Yeah.
And you even threw a fresh coat of paint on them to make them look...
Yeah, the stainless steel paint. I wanted them to match the stop text up front, but I couldn't get that color.
They're
So
a little brighter, aren't
Yes,
they? But
yeah.
something a little brake dust might fix up. So
yeah, of course.
gonna bolt that on there now. And Pete also posted a photo on, was it Instagram or on YouTube Communities, where we had the dust shield on here, and we couldn't access both mounting points for the caliper bracket because I think we put the shields on the wrong side. And rather than having to like take everything apart to swap them over, we just cut them off because frankly they're
It's race car spec.
exactly. We're gonna just evacuate more heat this way, so it's not all bad. So these are ready to go on, and we are gonna load them up with some StopTech Sport pads, which as you can see have these nice like beveled edges and that groove down the middle to help evacuate dust and dirt and all that good stuff. So these sport pads are more of a street pad in the sense that they won't generate a ton of dust or a lot of noise. But up front, we're actually running the race pads, the SR33 race pads. So we're gonna have lots of bite up front, a little less in the rear, which is a good thing for brake bias, generally speaking, on a front engine rear wheel drive car. Brakes are all bolted down and torqued to spec, so we are good to go on the rear brakes. Obviously, we're gonna have to bleed them as well. And now we're gonna move on to dealing with this issue with the rear spring, which you can see in droop here. This is a bit of an exaggeration right now, but in droop, the spring travels on a bit of an outward angle, and it's not well supported without an articulating rear perch like we're going to swap in now. So the other challenge we had was with the helper spring on here, the car was too high, so we were running without the helper spring. In any case, we are going to swap out the lower adjustable mount here from JRZ, and in its place we are going to install this ground control articulating rear mount. So as you can see, the spring perch here is on a spherical bearing that allows it to articulate, and what that'll do is it'll mean the spring will always stay in the correct position relative to the control arms of the chassis. So it's not gonna be like, you know, dog legging on us like that. It'll remain on the perch properly. That'll get rid of any spring rattle issues that we might have if the corner ever gets deweighted enough that the spring isn't under any kind of load. There you have it all in place, and we've just raised the suspension up into, you know, an estimation of ride height with the car on the ground, and we can see we don't have any you know, spring rattle issue right now. So hopefully we never get into a big enough droop situation where the spring kind of, you know, want to rattle around in there, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I think for now we're going to move on to doing a torque check in the back end here, because we need to just check every nut and bolt because we put this car back together without, you know, final assembly in mind. So time to do a complete torque check.
All right, our torque check and all the bolt tightening has been done. And of course, it wasn't without a bit of headache. I noticed that the brake lines that I put together were leaking at the junctions. And of course, they were a nightmare to take apart and then have to like do the fitting on and then put it all back together again. So as usual, a little bit of a hiccup that held us back, but we are now able to move on. New parts have arrived here for our front latch system. We actually ordered everything to replace this because we thought it was crusty. So we've got 2 new latches and new cables. So we are good to go. I'm gonna get to installing this. The one thing I will note is these latches here have these switches, I think, that trigger if the hood is open or not. So all I'm gonna do is loop them and hook them back together because the new ones don't. And I mean, I tried to transfer them over and they don't work very well, like they're press fit on here. So I'm just gonna scrap this system here. We don't need to know when the hood is open or not, and just get to installing these guys as is. Well, that was a bit of a chore. If you guys just saw in the time lapse, I actually had to tap the holes for threads on these latches. For some reason, I think it's a manufacturing defect on these. These were, by the way, these are like a cheap aftermarket one. They were 15 bucks each. So yeah, they didn't have any threads for the bolt. So I started trying to screw it in. I was like, what's going on here? There's no thread. So anyways, I had to do that. There we are. And let's see, does it pop? Oof,
Nice.
All right. Mission complete, so we're done with that. Now it is time we move back underneath the car.
We are going to start by upgrading this bushing on the front lower control arm, and this particular location on the lower control arm is notorious for tearing out, for deforming and causing a lot of alignment issues in the suspension. So it's an important one to upgrade. Generally speaking, on a suspension, the bigger the bushing, the more important it's going to be as far as compliance goes. So this is a really important one on this particular chassis, and as you can see, there's actually an old black poly bushing in here, which is looking a little bit torn and worn out here. So we are going to replace both these with these Super Pro bushings. We are putting Super Pro on everything these days, and that's for good reason. We've found them to be exceptional as far as fit and finish, but also in terms of ride quality. And having done some more research about them, I'm learning more and more about the fact that Super Pro does some really high-level R&D on their bushings. So they're not just, melting out a rubber bushing and filling the hole with one blend of polyurethane and doing that for every car across their lineup. In fact, they have 8 engineers on staff, and all those 8 guys do is R&D on bushings and what durometer the bushing material needs to be. Some of their bushings actually have multiple durometers throughout it, so it can start softer and get stiffer as it's compressed. And you can see they also do some really cool stuff with shapes inside here, where there's a square shape and then there's like an octagon shape in there. And those voids that those shapes create actually reduce NVH a lot while you're just cruising. So it transmits a lot less vibration to the cabin. But then as this bushing gets loaded up, the pin that goes through the bushing will start to make more full contact with the poly, and that'll control it, so it'll prevent any deflection happening in that joint. So you really do get the best of both worlds with this kind of technology. I should also mention they have a lifetime warranty on all of their bushings, which shows you how serious they are about the quality of what they make. And I think it's pretty cool too that it's a family-owned company out of Australia. They take a lot of pride in what they do, and they truly are leaders in this industry. They do so much R&D, it kind of blows my mind the more I read up on it. So I'll nerd out with you guys some more on bushings and what Super Pro does in future projects, but that's a good primer for now. So let's get to installing these. Those bushings in place, it's time to move on to the front sway bar, and for that we've turned to our friends at Eibach. This is their 29 mil hollow bar front bar, which as you can see is 3-way adjustable. I guess we might start with this on the soft side since we're running some pretty hardcore spring rates on those JRZs, and obviously with adjustability we can dial it in from there. So what we don't know, we know from past experience with Eibach front and rear sway bar kits like this one, is that they do a really good job of selecting their spring rates for handling balance. So we find that produces a very neutral handling car, but the wild card is when you change out other components of the suspension the way we have is how's that all going to interact. So having this adjustability will give us the opportunity to really get it dialed in for our JRZ setup and all the other good stuff we've put on this car. If you've ever installed an aftermarket sway bar like this on a lowered car with the OE end links, you'll know that they're often too long. So they're put into a lot of tension, and the joint here will be like bent way up or way down trying to fit it up, and that puts it under a lot of tension. Doesn't allow the sway bar to do its job properly, and it also wears the joint out really quickly. So to solve that problem, we are going to install these Super Pro adjustable end links, and as you can see, it's a turnbuckle style in either end. It's got these flat provisions on here for a wrench so you can adjust them on the car, which is exactly how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to put the wheel into static ride height position, which we could simulate by jacking each corner up, which we may do now. And then you want to have this in its most neutral position like it is now. You don't want it pointing up or down too much, or that's going to wear it out prematurely, and like I said, not let the sway bar do its job properly either. So there you have it, everybody. That is our Eibach 25 mil rear bar. The stock bar for reference is 21.5 mil thick, so this is quite a bit beefier, which will of course help the car turn better. And man, everything else is looking great back here, which means it is time to bleed the brakes and then put the wheels and tires back on and turn this thing into a roller. Ta-da, everybody.
Woo,
Coming down.
damn.
Looking good.
And this just dialed itself in, right, DP?
Oh, there was no effort made whatsoever. Truth be told, we actually spent quite a bit of time adjusting the ride height, just trying to get it looking right. We want that classic, you know, 1.5 to 2 finger fender clearance here. And we wanted a little bit of rake, so it's a little lower in the front than the rear. We may adjust it once we've driven it and it settles a bit, but we also set these JRZ RS2s to 5 from full soft for both compression and rebound. They're 21 OA adjustable, so we're pretty close to full soft for compression and rebound, just so it's even on all 4 corners. So again, we're getting the right sort of ride height measurements happening. So looks good, man. But I know Pete is tempted to put a 5 mil spacer out back for a little more aggressiveness in the back.
I am. If you look at it, it's got it can come out a little bit, whereas the front.
Yeah, you're right. The front.
And then you come to the front and you look at the front.
Yeah.
It's like fully flush.
Yeah, you're right. We could come out.
So maybe we can bolt on a 5 mil spacer and see what this thing looks like.
Let's give it a try. Gone to the stash, everyone. Pete's Horde come through again with these ST Suspension DZX wheel spacers, which you've seen probably on some of our other project cars. And we really like them because they're this very clever modular system where they use a billet aluminum spacer. This, as you can see, is marked 5 mil, which is nice too, because a lot of them are not marked. So you're like, what thickness is this? You got to get at the micrometer. And then they come with these plastic centering rings that allow you to make the spacer whatever bore you need for your application. So this is the correct one for our BMW hubs here. And you can see these just like snap down into place. It does take a little bit of effort to snap them in there, but they are nice and tight. And then as you can see here, we get a really nice snug fit on here. Like it is press fit. That is on there. And in our case, we still have a good amount of lip left on the hub for hub centricity on the wheel. So we are good to go now with our 5 mil spacers on here. I hate to admit it, PT, but you were right.
Oh, look at that
thing. It makes
thing.
a big difference. It really does. Makes it look so much more aggressive. And I think we're still going to have good clearance of the fender here.
Yeah, we got to dial in at a little bit of camber. I'm looking
Yeah.
at this tire here, and
You can
she's
see
going to
that
need some.
It's towed in a bit too, but I think we got good clearance there. And a lot of guys with this chassis kind of almost like tuck the rear. They run it so low, but I think it looks good at this ride height. I think it's a practical ride height for the mean streets of Hamilton around here. So, man, is it time to actually put this thing on the ground and see if it runs and drives and rolls?
I think it is, man.
Let's do it.
Okay, DP, I'm a little nervous. I hope we bled the clutch properly. And just to warn you here, we still haven't had a good, Mark hasn't looked at the tune, so this thing may be hard on the cold start and may not want to rev, but we're gonna try this anyways. Let's see what happens. Here we go.
Oh, we got a dead battery already?
All right, we got more power here. Let's see what happens.
Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Oh, she's thinking about it.
Woo! She's got a hell of a crank there. Let's try one more time.
Oh, yeah. Come on, baby.
Oh.
She's rich.
Yeah.
She's real rich.
She needs some work on that tune.
Yeah. Oh! Oh, yeah, she's dumping some smoke out the back.
Come on, girl. Come
She's
on.
real rich. Come on, baby. Come on. She's making us work for it. Oh, listen to that, though.
Oh, it starts. It just.
The 2J is so good, but it's too rich. It's just
I'm
way too rich.
trying to give it a little bit of gas too,
Yeah.
and it doesn't love that.
Oh,
Come
man.
on.
Come on, baby.
Oh.
Man. Oh. Oh. Listen to that sound. It's glorious. Oh. The tune just does not want to cooperate. It's so rich, man. Come on, baby. Come on.
Yeah, the moment that I try to give it
Get
any gas,
it just floods, eh?
yeah.
Just hold it there for a while, let it warm up.
Trying. I don't have it. See, the moment that I try to give it any gas, it dies out.
Huh, so can you just let it idle without giving it any gas?
No. You know what? Let me see if this thing will actually move though, DP.
All
Let's
right.
see what happens here. I'm gonna do this. Put it into gear here. It does.
You
It
felt
does
it?
move.
You
I had
felt
the
it
parking
move?
brake on. All right.
Oh yeah, she's moving! She's moving!
That's it. It's a win.
That's a win! That's a
it,
win!
guys.
That's all we need for a win, everybody. That's all we
The
need.
video's over. We've got ourselves a running car. Holy smokes, it's amazing. All right, we'll get back to you guys pretty soon. Thank you so much for watching. Another monumental moment has been met here. This car is pretty much like 95% put back together. And next stop is a dyno, so there may be a slight break in the videos because we got to work with Sasha at On Point to figure out timing on it, but we will try to bring you that video as soon as possible.